Welcome to Branching Out, Growing Together, the podcast that brings you inspiring stories from people ready to take bold steps, grow new opportunities, and transform their land or careers into something extraordinary. Hosted by Melanie Jones, each episode features farmers, entrepreneurs, and visionaries sharing their journeys of discovery and growth. Whether you're dreaming of starting your own farm or looking for new ways to cultivate success, you're in the right place. It's time to branch out and grow together.
Today, we're circling back with someone who's been part of the chestnut movement for a long time, Roger Blackwell. Roger is the president of Chestnut Growers of America, VP of Chestnut Growers, Inc., and the owner of New Era Chestnuts. He was actually one of our very first guests on the show, and so much has changed in the chestnut industry since then that I couldn't think of a better time to catch up. In this episode, we're talking about how the industry has grown. What's next for Chestnut Growers of America? CGA for short? And what it really takes to build a national movement around chestnuts. We have a lot of work to do, but we're heading in the right direction. Let me encourage anyone interested in seeing the chestnut community grow to consider joining CGA as we begin to reshape and expand how we help members. It's $50 right now. Please consider. You can reach out to me, Melanie, at unitedchestnuts.com for info. Here we go.
Well, let me welcome Roger Blackwell back to the Branching Out, Growing Together podcast. For those of you who don't know Roger, he is president of Chestnut Growers of America, also owner of New Era Chestnuts, and recently stepped down as president to vice president of Chestnut Growers, Inc. And what I think is interesting is that Roger was our very first guest like 3 years ago, but so much has transpired in the chestnut industry that I thought the timing was just really perfect to have Roger back on the podcast and talk about Chestnut Growers of America. So Roger, we met up at the Chestnut Growers of America and the Northern Nut Growers Conference in Lansing, Michigan, just a few weeks ago. And, it was such a phenomenal event that I wanted to try to convey some of that excitement and the resources of Chestnut Growers of America to our audience. You selected a new board of directors, and I am absolutely thrilled to serve as the VP of Growth. I think the timing is just so perfect for that right now. So thank you so much for coming back and spending a few minutes with us.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you. And happy retiree.
That's absolutely right. To all the listeners out there, today is my last day at my corporate job, and I am thrilled to be able to step forward into the chestnut community and contribute, put it that way. So thank you, Roger.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
So if we were to look back over, say, the last 15 years or so, what progress in Chestnut Growers of America makes you the proudest, I guess?
Mostly the people that have come to our meetings and talked to me and talked to many of the individuals that already have chestnuts growing in the ground and watching them produce. And just to see that in this last meeting that we had this summer, there's more younger people getting involved with the growing of chestnuts and the excitement of those individuals that come to the meeting to seek out knowledge about what is the best ways to plant trees, grow the trees, and then also look into the future of how you're going to harvest all the chestnuts that you're going to have.
Yeah, and how to sell them also.
Oh, absolutely.
I think the industry is growing so much in what is still considered kind of a niche crop, but it's on the verge of becoming something so much greater in the United States. And I think if I asked you, why is CGA, why does it matter? Like, not what is it, but why does it matter to have this group that's focused on growing an industry in the United States?
Well, it matters because there's an opportunity to introduce to the American public chestnuts. A lot of the buyers today or in the last 20 years, excuse me, that have been ethnic groups. We've been in Michigan here. We have Bosnians, we have Chinese, we have Koreans that seek out chestnuts. The general American that lives in the United States really doesn't know a lot about chestnuts. And I've had the experience of working in a major farmers market, which is the largest farmers market in the state, called Eastern Market in downtown Detroit. And over the years, about every other person that came by where I'm roasting chestnuts, they never had a chestnut. And then there's people that said, well, I used to get chestnuts in New York City or in some other town on the East Coast, but they didn't realize that they were here in Michigan. And the excitement there of them trying a chestnut, and probably 9 out of 10 people like the chestnut. There's always an individual that might say, I don't like this, because they have an expectation of it tasting like some other nut, when in actuality, chestnuts are unique.
Yes.
So from that experience, I see the importance of Chestnut Growers of America. And let me go back just a minute here. But originally, when I started back in the late late 80s, my father-in-law got me involved with chestnuts because he got an interest in it. And I helped him plant several trees on his property at the time. And then we kind of evolved together in that property. And then I started looking at information about chestnuts. And there wasn't a lot good information. There was information, but very minimal as far as how would one go about in establishing a chestnut orchard. And looking at, not every piece of property is the best place to plant a chestnut. Not every, I mean, you used to say, well, like, just find a piece of property. Maybe it's not growing anything else, and chestnuts will grow. And that's a bunch of baloney. You need to look, and right now I tell people, if you see peach trees growing in that property, if you've seen apple orchards, if you see blueberries growing, those are usually low pH in the 5 to 6 range, and those are potentially good places to plant chestnuts. But anyways, there's lots of information, and thanks to Chestnut Growers of America and the archives. I didn't start Chestnut Growers of America. Chestnut Growers of America was started a few years ago by a couple of the Youngs, and they call it the Western Chestnuts organization. And then over time, it's evolved into Chestnut Growers of America, which was the name that it was called prior to me really getting involved with Chestnut Growers of America. But it's an organization that is able to give education and give good ideas on how to market chestnuts. And the other part of this I can share with you in this meeting is that I already have buyers calling me and say, okay, Roger, when's chestnuts going to be ready? And I tell them, well, it'll be latter part of October. May even have them sooner than we've ever had before, in the middle of October. But it's exciting.
It is exciting. It is exciting. I mean, here at our chestnut farm, we've already sold out. We've sold out every single year since we started growing them, and we keep growing the orchards and we keep selling out. And I think that was such a good summary of kind of where the organization started and what we're doing moving forward. Is I think that we both agree that having additional resources available for the membership is something that the board would love to focus on, and then thereby grow the membership so that we're, educating from a standpoint of other growers like yourselves and many others that are already doing this, that we're getting correct information published in. I think one of the board members suggested creating like a forum where it's not just a Facebook group where people are throwing comments around, but it's really something evolved for commercial growers. So
Yes.
it'll be fun to work on things like that, won't it?
Yes, it will be.
Um, I have this favorite quote that movements don't start with perfection. They start when people show up and give. And I mean, I think you're that guy. You're showing up all the time, leading, being available and everything. So what is it that drives you to keep doing all this?
What drives me is I really have a passion for chestnuts. I um, I always wanted to have my own business. Uh, I work I work for a government quasi business organization called the U.S. Postal Service, and I spent 36 years with the Postal Service and had many different jobs and even moved around the country a bit. But my goal has been to have a business that makes sense. And to me, having an orchard, a piece of property, and growing chestnuts, and knowing that there's a market for chestnuts every year is a kind of a very good business model that I um, think can mean a lot to a lot of different people if you have access to property. And I'm not saying there's some people that show up and they don't have the money to buy property or really the wherewithal to do it, but um, that's not the way we need to go. We need to go where you know find a piece of property. Maybe you inherit from your parents or from your grandparents or something like that. But there's also potential to buy a piece of property, grow the chestnuts, and I'll tell you, within 15 years, you can have a pretty steady income that could eventually pay for that property that you bought. And just the business model makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah.
But also you need to be cautious. Not chestnuts don't grow everywhere, like some people have implied, and it's and then the thing about chestnuts, if you think about it, we're one of the it's a sustainable crop and it'll last hundreds of years. There's chestnut trees in Italy, in France, in Spain that are thousands of years old. And it was
Yeah.
because the Romans planted those chestnuts during the Roman Empire days as they marched from country to country. And, uh, and then of course the decline of the Roman Empire happened. But those trees that they helped planted, and they planted those trees so that when they marched through, they could get chestnuts and they could make flour. They could make a flatbread with the flour and sustain themselves on that food. So, anyways,
Yeah.
chestnuts are exciting food. It's a complex carbohydrate. It's good for you. You could live on chestnuts. It has protein in the chestnuts, and it's a sustainable crop, and it's good for the market. And we can only in the United States we can only grow. It's going to be a long time before the market will be, let's say, overproduced with
Uh,
chestnuts.
Definitely,
I
definitely.
mean,
I mean, that's one of my personal goals in the next few years is to help drive the demand. I mean, we're seeing the supply grow, and that's exciting. But like you said, you start on day one, it's eight years or so before you're, really having a good supply of chestnuts. But if we can drive the education, the demand, and the supply comes along, I mean, we're making an impact in our world, which that opportunity doesn't come along every day where someone can do, like you said, save your pennies, buy a piece of land, inherit it, and then do something great with it that's multi-generational. It just
absolutely,
doesn't get more exhilarating than that.
absolutely,
Um,
and you can't. And just like Melanie, what you're talking about, you've already sold out. We, I caution when you get big enough, and I'm also going to throw out the co-ops.
yep.
in the now are where to grow. If you have a co-op and you have several growers doing the same thing with chestnuts, that's where you want to be, because to have we have clout in Michigan because of our co-op. We have 35 growers in our co-op, and we're able to sell all of our chestnuts between November 1st and the end of December.
Yeah.
And I caution, I'm going to give this message all the time. If you sell to a customer, they need to keep the chestnuts refrigerated. And if you sell to a grocery store, and let's say a grocer says, well, hey, I want to buy enough chestnuts to last for 2 months, the likelihood of them being able to keep the chestnuts fresh is slim to none, because they're not going to have the refrigeration. When I sell to a buyer, I ask the buyer, how many pounds of chestnuts can you sell in 2 to 3 weeks? And that's what I'll sell you. And then come back to me in 2 or 3 weeks and I'll sell you some more, because we're
Yeah.
able to keep our chestnuts in 32 degrees refrigeration, and we rotate them and all that good stuff. So because chestnuts are 55% moisture, 55% water, you might as well say, and they do evaporate or transpire in the market, like if they're put out there in the market and you see chestnuts next to the peanuts and the walnuts and that in the market, that's not good,
Yeah.
because the temperature is going to be 70 degrees in the building, and those chestnuts, in no time, you can walk up to the chestnuts in 2 weeks, even a week, really, squeeze a chestnut, and they've already shriveled. They're already starting to get like stone. So
Yeah.
the importance of refrigeration is a key for successful fresh chestnuts.
Thank you for that message, Roger.
Thank you.
It's important, but like just listening to you talk is, how do we get the information that's in growers' heads that have learned from hard work and experience into a platform where others can take advantage of it through, like, Chestnut Growers of America, and really, that we call it CGA, but CGA is small, but it has the opportunity to really grow and expand the kind of services that are available to members. And I think I just wanted to put this podcast out so that people that are learning about the industry know that some of us are working on that, that we know that we need to make the environment more education first, also really promoting the members, the growers, to the consumers. And it's going to allow us to bring some creativity into this, what we're doing. And so I know, me personally, I'm going to be trying to gain membership, people to join, so that we have a little bit of money to work with. So that's pretty exciting, isn't it?
Yes, it is, and there's some examples out there of organizations like even the Christmas Tree
Yes.
Association, which is nationally, and they uh, chip in. I forget how much, but maybe less than $1 or something per tree into a fund to help finance advertising and consumer knowledge about a live Christmas tree in that environment. And I know the apple industry has that kind of thing, and so does the cherry industry and
Yeah. So
several under and
we're
several
at
under.
that point, right? We're at that point to do that, and not to mention some grants. I mean, like you said, I've read a report that said, in theory, the chestnut could replace corn as a much more sustainable crop and use it, and it's down the road, but you still think about it. What foundation are we laying for future generations by promoting the chestnut as a viable product like it used to be? That's the other part. Is, you talk about, being at the market and people not knowing what the chestnut is. Well, in the early 1900s, people certainly knew what it was. It was a food staple and a lumber product and everything like that. So we just got to get back to where we were. Um,
Yeah,
so
it's gonna
yeah.
yeah, it's gonna take some time for the American chestnut tree to come about, and those tree. If we live in the 1800s, and I always talk about, I'm not sure when the Appalachian trail, hiking trail was established, but if you walked along the Appalachian Trail from Maine down to Georgia, every fifth tree was an American chestnut tree on the East Coast here. And there was over 3.5 billion American chestnut trees. And it was a lumber
Yeah.
source, and it was a food source, and it was part of the natural ecology. When the chestnut blight hit the American chestnut, wiped them out in a matter of 40 years, that was really a bad thing historically for that to happen. But
Yeah. And I know a lot of people that I talk to are interested in the difference between bringing the American chestnut tree back in hybrid chestnuts and grafted chestnuts, etc. Do you want to make a comment on that? Like, yeah, what is your perspective on that?
um, my perspective is that it's important, excuse me again, that that growers who are really interested in getting involved in growing chestnuts um, look at quality trees that they're going to put in the ground to grow chestnuts. And there is um, things that we're working on right now where I'm kind of a proponent of grafted trees, and I'm also a proponent of growing through tissue culture specific varieties of chestnut trees that will grow well in many of the areas of the United States. The
Yeah.
understanding too is that not all chestnut trees will grow everywhere, and some trees, for instance, the Dunstan um, tree, which is a Chinese variety, uh, grows in the South. It grows in Florida. It grows in Georgia. I mean, it grows. Whereas some chestnut trees that we're growing up here in Michigan, let's say, are more attuned to our northern climate, um, that are European, Japanese cultivars. Um, the seedlings that people will plant um, will probably take longer to get production, and not every tree will produce. So using by growing grafted trees or using the technology with tissue culture, your production per acre will be higher than the typical seedlings that may be used in the process. So
Okay. But
I'm in the group that looks at production per acre. I want higher yield per acre than what some orchards have planted. A lot of seedlings, and they're never going to reach the higher yields that we are.
so again, here's some great information
I lost your sound.
that we need to
I lost your sound. Why am I losing your sound? SUNY in New York State and the University of Syracuse, but it's not. It's really SUNY, which is associated with the University of Syracuse. There's researchers that are still working on the American chestnut to make it blight resistant. And from their standpoint, it'll be at least another 10 years before they're going to be able to give a good um, tree out to the general growers in the United States to play with the tree, so to speak. So,
yeah. Okay.
yeah.
So
Uh,
what do you think that people, either members of Chestnut Growers of America or thinking of joining, are looking for from the organization? What do you hear from the field?
I think the individuals that are uh, joining our organization are looking for information and looking for practical ideas on how you start an orchard, how you develop and how you select your trees, and and then thinking ahead, like, well, when you have like if you plant an acre of chestnut trees, how are you going to harvest them? And then how are you going to sell them?
Yeah, exactly.
And if you plant 10 acres of chestnut trees, how are you going to harvest them and get them to market? And then how do you like we developed a co-op here in Michigan to make it better for our growers. Instead of every 35 growers trying to do the same things, the growers just need to concentrate on growing their trees. But then when they harvest, they bring their chestnuts into the co-op, and we do all the lifting for bagging, sorting, cleaning, and then selling the chestnuts and getting a good price for the chestnuts, where the growers is good, getting a good price for his efforts in growing the chestnuts. So those are some of the things that CGA could help in different locations in the United States to help set up a co-op and
Yeah, that's
help
a
work with
good
that.
perspective. And just anyone that wasn't able to attend the conference in Lansing this past summer, it was phenomenal to be able to go to Rogers Reserve and see the operation that CGI uses. So it's Chestnut Growers Inc., which is the co-op in Michigan, versus Chestnut Growers of America. Sometimes that gets, a little confusing there for listeners, but really it's quite a site, and y'all have worked with Michigan State quite a bit in developing that, right?
Really, Norm Rogers and his wife dedicated that acreage that we visited to the chestnut industry, and it's an endowment, and it's a very good endowment, which is generating additional funds every year, and that's how um, it's part of MSU, but it's kind of independent. It doesn't rely on any funding
Yeah,
from anywhere else other than the endowment, and it's really a
that's
neat thing that,
awesome.
yeah, that was left for that kind of research.
Yeah. Well, let's do one final question, and that is, what encouragement would you give people that are just now thinking about getting into this crazy chestnut world?
Come and join Chestnut Growers of America, and every year we have an annual meeting, and there's so much information that flows in that 3 or 4 day meeting. Actually, it's 4 days that one can learn about chestnuts and where to start, where to look. There's been, excuse me, in the last couple of years, I've met with individuals that they were looking for property. I mean, they were looking at how do you identify a piece of property to plant trees. How do you do all these things in the chestnut industry? And even the networking, just in
Yep,
between the meetings and sitting down, and there's times in the evening that one can talk to different individuals and talk about where to go and what to do. In fact, I remember now I'm looking back, it was about 10 years ago. There's one gentleman that was at the meeting, and he was asking about chestnuts and that, and now he's a very successful grower. He has I think 50 acres of chestnut trees, and he's moved with the current. He's bought the right equipment, and he's doing well. And he became a member of our co-op in Michigan. And
that's awesome.
he was out there looking and studying what to do, and he's been very successful at it. So I
Well, that's
feel
great.
very
Yep.
good about having helped him and other individuals uh, in joining Chestnut Growers of America and thriving.
Absolutely. And we've got a great new board. I know we're excited to see what incremental steps we can take to continue to build upon the great foundation that's there. But you're right, just the events are fantastic, and the networking alone, that's where you can learn so much. But I think we want to broaden the educational part of what we have to offer, and we'll get there. So, Roger, thank you so much. I know you guys are just on the cutting edge here of harvesting, and it's going to be busy, busy, but appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it, Melanie.
You're
Thank you.
welcome.
This episode of Branching Out Growing Together is brought to you by United Chestnuts, where the future of chestnut farming is taking root. If you're growing chestnuts, or planning to, and need help marketing, selling, or building your brand, United Chestnuts is here to help. We're building the system to support growers nationwide. With custom microsites, SEO and e-commerce tools, digital storytelling, and connections that make your orchard more visible and more profitable. Because chestnuts are coming back. And we're here to make that growth visible, viable, and collaborative, nationwide. Learn more and join our waiting list at unitedchestnuts.com/resources.